Hey, Julie. Hey, Chrissy. Oh, you're muted.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Give people a couple minutes as people are just hopping off the other call. Okay, hold on.
Perfect.
How's it going? How are
Good.
you?
I auto recorded it so then I can convert it for you afterwards and then.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Let me our team call. Let me message the first line. Is having okay.
You look
Hi,
so warm in your t-shirt. I'm freezing.
Hi guys. It's hot. I'm actually sweating. How's it going?
Good.
So I think you just want to wait one more minute, and then even if it's just a couple people, it'll still be beneficial to just record it and send it out later.
Yeah, for sure. People that are planning on coming on.
Did you have a good? Are people being?
It was good. Let me send. This. Yeah, normally I feel like the new rep calls, there's just like a couple people on there, and there was a lot of people on there. So I'm wondering, I think people are still going to be coming here. Just one sec. Let's see. Let me send this again. And then we send this to these two. Another call. Oh, whoa. What just happened on my screen? Hey, Tracy.
Hi, Tracy. Well, no worries, Chrissy. You just let me know when you're ready for me to start, and I will get going. So,
sorry. Let's
Oh, here's Jen.
Okay, a few more people are hopping on. Yeah, if you want to go ahead and let me introduce you guys. So, Carri and Ekberg, I'm excited for you guys to hear from her. She basically, beyond just being completely amazing and incredible, took some of our trainings from Summit and turned it into kind of a, what would you call it? Like a revamp of that.
Yeah.
And is going to be bringing a lot of things to us today.
Yeah, that's perfect, Chrissy.
I guess that's the best way to put it. But so we were talking too, and I was like, she got taken away from it and what you were doing. It was just completely incredible. And I was like, well, that's amazing, because I walked away from Summit for that part and I didn't know what to do with it. I felt like I had heard all these incredible ideas and I didn't know what to do with them. So I'm like, I'm going to be sitting here taking notes and soaking this in, and I'm so excited to hear from you. And I'm going to turn it over to you, and thank you for being here and doing this for us.
Sure. So I'm going to do this a little bit differently than the Zoom calls, you guys. I have some slides I'm going to share with you, and then Chrissy will share those slides with you afterwards. So I actually did this presentation at a local networking group here just to try it out and see, because this one thing from Summit really stuck with me. It was the one piece that I took away, opposite from Chrissy, who was like, I didn't really know what to do with it. I was like, this is what I do. Like, I love this. This is amazing. It just all kind of clicked for me. So I'm glad that I can share that with you guys. So I did this at a local networking group, And they were laughing, they were crying with me. I was crying. I mean, it was ridiculous, but amazing, and ridiculous in an amazing way. So I wanted to share it with you guys. And then hopefully you guys can take some of this and use it to implement in your businesses to help you, one, gain more customers, more followers, and to really resonate like your story with the people who are in your network so that they will remember you better. As far as like, you know, when they're like interested in purchasing, or if they have questions, or if they want to get to know you. I hope that these stories and the way that you tell them will help them stick with them so that they will keep you in their minds when they need a pair of leggings down the road. They'll remember that amazing story you told and like, oh, I need a pair of leggings or a bra. Let me message Carrie Ann. I remember she has a daughter the same age as I do, and she had this amazing story about it. And I, you know, that reminds people. So, all right, you guys, I'm going to share my screen with you, and hopefully this works. There we go. So you should still see me up in the corner while I'm talking. There we go. Okay. So again, so I have taken what I've learned from Kendra who spoke at Summit. And if you guys weren't there, this is great because this might be the first time you're hearing it. And I put it into this presentation. And I also have been testing out like some of the things that she told us to do. I've been testing them out on my own social media, and it's been working. So I'm excited to share this with you guys. Okay, so the first thing I want to tell you guys is my story. So it really starts for me in the summer of 2016. I was sitting at a table with a bunch of dudes. I was doing labor and employee relations for the government. And what that basically means is that I got to negotiate over things like parking spaces and work hours and just stuff that's not super exciting. And it was literally sucking the life out of me. I could feel it. I was dying there slowly. So the piece of it that I had this like revelation, I was sitting at this table, it was me and a bunch of guys, and I had this like overwhelming sense that my life was just not going in the direction that I wanted it to. And I literally got up and I walked out of that meeting, and I looked down. I was 8 months pregnant at the time. I looked down at my stomach and I was like, this cannot be my life. Like, I can't do this anymore. Like, this poor child inside of me deserves better. And my daughter, who was 3 at the time, she deserves better. Like, I am not happy. I am not the mom I want to be. I'm not the wife I want to be. I'm not the friend that I want to be because I'm not happy. And so when I found ZYIA, it took me a few months, but I got to the point where I just ended up quitting my job. I was done. I threw in the towel because I wanted that flexibility. I wanted that freedom. And I really feel like I am on the right path now because I wake up every day and I'm excited. I was telling Chrissy yesterday, like, I'm so excited to get up. My husband asked me last night, are you happy? And I was like, yes. I could honestly tell him, yes, I'm happy. I love what I'm doing. I love this path that ZYIA has put me on. I love the connections it's made. And I love the fact that I get to do something that I want to do every day, not something that's for somebody else. Whether it be the government or another business, it's me. I get to do it for myself and it makes me happy. And for me, that is more important than anything because life is short, you guys. And if you aren't spending the time doing the things you love with the people you love, then what's the point? So that's kind of how I came to be where I am, I guess. So I love telling that story to people because I feel like it's okay. Like, and you guys should share your stories with people too, because those little moments in your life, those are the stories that stick with people. That's where they truly resonate. They connect with you and they end up believing in themselves. I love telling that story to people. So I hope that you guys, that resonates with you a little bit. All right, so Kendra, she is just a really badass lady who tells a lot of stories and probably makes a really good amount of money and has a great career doing that. So, I mean, that's basically what I could tell from her. She's awesome. Okay, so you guys, I want to talk to you about what a story is. This is just the dictionary's version of what a story is, but it's really accurate. It's just an account of an event in someone's life or an evolution of something in their life. And you can tell so many different types of stories. So that's what I'm going to talk to you guys about today. Okay, so I came back from Summit really excited to tell stories, but I didn't 100% believe that what Kendra had said would actually work. I was super skeptical, so I decided to test it. And I've been battling with this health issue for a long time. It's a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. It's basically a nasty little bug that gets in your stomach, and it is really, really hard to get rid of. It can just debilitate you. Stomach aches, gas floating. I'm not going to go into the gory details, but it's horrible and it's very hard to treat. And so I decided to be really open and very honest, and I wanted to tell my SIBO story and see if it stuck with people, to see if it resonated. So what I did, I started by telling like a catchy first line, right? So my first line was, 2 weeks ago, I hugged a complete stranger. I was hoping to stop the scroll. So that's the first thing you guys need to do, is stop the constant, like people are scrolling so fast, you want to stop the scroll with some type of a catchy line. So again, 2 weeks ago, I hugged a complete stranger. That stopped people, you guys. From there, I talked about how I had issues with doctors listening to me, people misdiagnosing me. I didn't really feel like I was getting the treatment or the help that I needed, and I wasn't getting any better. And that is so frustrating. 15 months into this, through my network, through social media, through telling my stories to people, I connected with a doctor, somebody who I knew, who knew a friend who bought a pair of leggings from me, found a doctor who could help me. And this doctor, I told him my story. I was sitting in his office and he said to me, Carrie Ann, I know what's wrong with you. I know why your treatment hasn't worked, and I can help you. So think about dealing with something like this, like something debilitating for 15 months. And then somebody finally tells you, I hear you and I can help you. So I did. I got up out of my chair and I hugged the poor guy. And he was, I think he was a little shocked, but he was appreciative. And I told that story. You guys, that was my highest liked, highest commented on post, highest messaged, shared post of all time, you guys. It was amazing. I was shocked, actually. I think it had like 40 or 50 comments. And then what's really cool is I had 5 people message me privately from that post. And either they, one, had gone through a similar battle and were just thanking me for sharing their story, or my story. And then I had other people who messaged me and said, I have had similar symptoms like that, and I haven't been able to find help. Who's this doctor? What did you do? And I really felt like I could help them. So that to me was more important, I think, than anything, was that connection that I made with those people. And I think I will remember that forever, and they will remember that just by telling my story. Okay, so why do stories work so well? If you guys think about it, anytime that you've heard a story, what stories have resonated with you? What are the ones that have really stuck with your brain? They're the stories where there's characters, right? There's somebody who you care about. And then you remember them because you're either rooting for them, or you connect with them because you feel their pain or you feel their passion. Those are the types of stories that you guys want to tell. This is what Kendra put so well, and I actually came back and I did a little bit of research. She talked about the science behind it, and it makes a lot of sense, you guys. So we have 2 hormones in our brain, cortisol and oxytocin. Cortisol regulates stress, and then oxytocin is, she called it your like cuddle hormone or your hug hormone, and it makes 100% sense. So when you're telling stories, your goal is to activate these 2 hormones in people's brains. And if you do that, they will remember you, and their story, the stories that you tell, will stick with them. So that's where stories kind of live in the brain, and that's where they come from, if that makes sense. Okay, so she had this really good analogy about the Super Bowl, and I took this to that networking group that I went to. And I did this post and I said, okay, raise your hand, guys, if you know or remember that dude with the Doritos. And like 1 person raised her hand. I honestly don't even know where that was. I had to Google like Super Bowl ads because I didn't even know what that was. Then I said, hey, you guys, raise your hand if you recognize that blonde chick with the big beefy burger. And nobody raised their hands. And I couldn't even tell you what that was an ad for. Maybe like Arby's or something. I don't know. But then I said, hey, you guys, raise your hand if you remember the sweet little puppy and the Clydesdale, the Budweiser ad. And every single person raised their hand. And that is so important because people remember that story, right? You remember like the sweet little puppy who loves the horse loves the puppy goes away, the horse saves the puppy, and everybody's happy at the end. Like that's such a heartwarming story. And I think that is like the #1 grossing Super Bowl ad of all time, because people remember that it was characters, it was emotional, and they cared about it. So I thought that was really interesting. I put that to the test at my networking group, and people, it held true. That was the story that was told with that ad, was like the #1 story, and it was the most memorable. Okay, I just really love this quote. One of the best storytellers of all time, I would think. He said, if history were taught in the form of stories, it would never be forgotten. So think about a time where you guys sat in like your high school history class and you were remembering numbers and statistics and dates. How many of you guys remember that stuff now? But think about if your teachers had taught you through stories, you probably would remember some of those stories and some of those statistics better, which might help us all when we're helping our kids with our homework. So the next thing I want to share with you guys is Kendra had 4 components to a story. She talked about having identifiable characters, authentic emotion, significant moments, and specific details. So the big thing that people get wrong is, I think at least, they think that you have to have some significant moment in your life. You have to have some hero of your story. And that's not true. You just have to have somebody that other people identify with. Know your audience and speak to your audience, and people will identify with that. The emotion in your story has to be authentic. It can't be fake. And your stories have to be truthful, you guys. I started writing a story and I had my husband read it and he was like, is that really true? And I was like, well, part of it's not. And he's like, I see right through it. So I was like, delete. Not a good idea. So be truthful with your stories, you guys. And then the other thing that people get wrong is they tend to tell a broader story, but they don't talk about the specific significant moments. So think about the moments in your life, and I'll go into this in a little bit more detail. And those are the stories you want to tell, those small moments. I had a moment the other day at bedtime with my kids. Like, those are the moments that you want to tell. All right, this is just a quote that I got from Kendra. I wrote this down and like highlighted it and underlined it in my book. Stories are uniquely memorable because they resonate with people in their own lives. And that is 100% true. All right, so I want to tell you guys about the pumpkin patch. I used some examples when I was doing this for my networking group, and these are the stories. I wanted to test it out on them, and these are the stories that they laughed with me, they cried with me, and it was really a pretty awesome experience. So when I was at the summit, Kendra told a story. She talked about a mom who would go to a special day. She would drop her kid off every day, or every year there was a special day at school called dress up day or something like that. She would drop her kid off. She never got to go to dress up day. And she would go to work and basically sit there and wait for other parents to send her pictures of her kid because she was at work. And I think that resonated with a lot of people in the audience. Maybe some people it didn't, but I was like in the back, like all the way in the back, crying my eyes out because she was talking about me. Like, that story was literally my life before when I was working full time. I couldn't take days off to do things like that with my kid. So I wanted to take that story and kind of morph it into my own. So I recently told a story on my social media about the pumpkin patch. And I started it with a catchy header. So the first line said, a year ago, this picture would have never happened. And I went on to detail about how I got to take my daughter on her kindergarten field trip to the pumpkin patch with all of the other kids. And it was one of the best moments of my life. And again, that post was one of my highest liked posts, my highest commented on posts. And I got a lot of comments and feedback from other people that had similar stories or said the same thing. So just another example of how telling your little stories can really help and resonate with people and connect you and ultimately lead to your business growing. Okay, so what's the problem? People don't always tell stories. They kind of gleam over the stories. They gleam over the meat of the stories, the really emotional, the personal parts, because they're either afraid or they're scared or they don't know how to tell them. So those are the things that you need to be unafraid of and you need to start telling. People tell bad stories. I talked about your stories have to be truthful, right? You can't make up stories because people won't believe you. Or they tell something that's inappropriate or not right for the audience or something like that, and it doesn't connect with people. So you really have to know your audience, and it has to be an emotional, truthful story that you're telling. People slap and stick. I've done this a lot. You're like, oh, I got to post on social media. I'm going to slam something together and post it. That doesn't usually work. And I know that I've done that for like a year and a half. So I know that doesn't work. Every once in a while you'll get one, but it doesn't, it just stay away from it, you guys. So here's, I guess, a way to look at it. So instead of, for ZYIA, instead of telling people about how much less expensive our leggings are than Lululemon, or about how our copper charge tank has copper thread so you don't stink after your workout, or statistics about, the leggings or the company or whatever. Tell the stories about the people that you sell the leggings to. So tell the story about the mom who's at the playground and she was constantly pulling her pants up, couldn't find a place to put her keys, her phone, her wallet. It was total chaos. And how she found a pair of our pocket leggings, put them on, and all of a sudden she has a place for all of her stuff. Her hands are free, so she can play with her kids, and she's not worried about where her stuff is all the time. And her pants are staying up. I mean, I know that's kind of a funny story, but those are the kind of stories. So rather than tell the statistics, tell the stories. Another great example is, let's say there's a working mom and she's rushing from the gym to work and she wants an outfit that can take her from gym to street. So rather than telling her that, you can wear this tank top and it won't smell, tell the story of how she gets to work out. She gets a great workout in, she can toss some deodorant on and she feels great. She gets to wear her same outfit. She doesn't feel as rushed, and she goes and finishes her day, whether it's work or whether it's running errands or picking up her kids. It's given her that flexibility, I guess, if that makes sense. Even if it's a small moment of flexibility, it's one less thing that she has to think about in her life. Tell that story instead, you guys, and it will work, I promise you. Okay, so again, like I just talked about, a story, it's not a list of facts, of bullet points. We're all guilty of that. These polyester cotton blend tops are amazing. This bra is super supportive. Yes, it is all of those things, but people aren't going to remember that. So you have to tell the stories about how those pieces or products have impacted people or impacted you. Tell the story about why you love them so much. Simply being passionate isn't going to be enough. Simply putting up photos isn't going to be enough. You've got to have the good content there to go with that. Again, you don't want to be vague, and you also don't want to overpromise. So you wouldn't want to say like, these leggings are going to, you're going to lose 50 pounds by wearing these leggings, or telling a story of somebody who wore these leggings and lost 50 pounds. Like, that's just not realistic. So make sure that you're not overpromising or under delivering, that you're just telling the stories. So what is a story? It's just a moment in time. It's very simple, you guys, beginning, middle, end, with emotion, not just information. There's characters that you care about, and there's something at stake. If you have all of those elements, your stories will stick. I promise you. Every single story that I have posted since the summit that has all of these elements has been an amazing post for me. It's been more interaction, more comments, more likes, more messages to me. And then ultimately that leads those people to remember that I'm here and what I do and the company I work for. And it's really been great. Okay, so the biggest mistake that people make, I've kind of talked about this already, you allude to the story, but you don't actually tell it. The other thing that I think people really, really forget, or they don't realize, is they think that maybe their stories aren't good enough, or their stories aren't important, or they don't think that people are gonna care. You have to be a little bit brave here, and you have to put yourself out there to tell these stories, because if my stories are worth telling, you guys, then your stories are worth telling too. You just have to find them and craft them, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. Okay, so how to tell your story. You literally have to find your story. We're going to go through that in a second. You write it, and then you just tell it. You just have to be brave and tell it. All right, we're going to go through that here. Okay, so how do you find your story? This was really helpful for me at the summit. Kendra gave us this list. She said, make your list of all of these things. Make a list of your firsts. Make a list of your favorite products, the time that you used them, you wore them. Make a list of your customers, their experiences, of questions. These will all help you start to brainstorm how to find those stories. And it'll kind of turn your mind on to key you into when those stories are happening in your life to write them down. Like, I realized the other night when we were at bedtime, this is a story I can tell, and I'm going to tell that one probably later today. So it will help you kind of cue into when those stories are happening, and you can just write it down on your list and then go back and tell it later. The moment you discovered your why, that's a really powerful story to tell. So if you tell that right, it will resonate with people. So crafting your story, keep it simple. So you're going to use, as she put it, normal, explosion, and new normal. And all that means is that you basically were going down life. Life was going like this for you. Something big happened, an explosion happened, a turning point, and then all of a sudden something's different in your life. And you either share what your life is like after that explosion has happened, after something is different. So for me, think back to that pumpkin patch story that I told you guys. Didn't get to do any of that cool stuff or fun stuff all of a sudden, no more full-time job, no more 9 to 5. I get to do the things that I love with the people that I love the most. That's the new normal for me. That's what I didn't have before. So that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense for you guys. So how and where to tell your story. I love telling my stories person to person. I love talking about it. It's not comfortable for everybody. So if you're not there yet, you can also tell your stories on social media. That's where you're going to find a lot of the interaction. That's where you're going to find the business impact, as well as the in-person. And then also don't forget to tell your stories within your teams. Those people, they look up to you and they want to hear your stories. They want to see what you're doing and they want to connect with you as well. And so it's really important for you to share some of those stories with your team. So if you have, and you can make those more specific, if you have a specific story about a customer or a client that you helped, or even maybe a particularly difficult one that you overcame their issue or their problem with, tell those stories to your team because that will ultimately help them in the end. Okay, I want to tell you guys another kind of test case that I did. So this is a story about my niece. She is 14. And this was an example of, she has a much bigger story than what I was able to tell on social media for personal and family reasons. I couldn't tell her whole story. But long story short, Kylie has a disability. She can't see correctly. I can't remember the specific name of it, but basically her eyes don't work together. So she can't play sports. She has trouble focusing in class and reading and things like that. So not being able to play sports in high school is really tough because she can't really bond. She can't, all of her friends are doing things and she kind of felt like she was missing out. So she found a friend who joined the band, and this friend carried the banner for the band, and this friend asked her to carry the banner with her. And so Kylie started doing that over the summer and she loved it. She's found that she's part of a team. She gets to be with her friends. High school is a little bit less daunting and rough because she's got this community of 150 people on the band that are with her, but she doesn't actually have to march. She doesn't have to carry an instrument. It doesn't affect her disability. So she's found this sense of community. So the band is going to Hawaii in April, and she couldn't afford, so through my sister, living with my sister, she couldn't afford to spend money for Kylie to go to band, to this trip to Hawaii. And so what I did was I did a GoFundMe campaign for Kylie. And I told just a little piece of her story. I didn't tell the part about how my sister's a mess. She's an alcoholic. She's into drugs, that, Kylie's lived and grown up in this like pretty rough household. I couldn't tell that story. But I told the story about how being part of a team and overcoming her disability made her a stronger person and gave her a sense of purpose. And she's excelling and doing so much better in school because of it. That's the story I told. And I asked people, I wanted to raise $2,000 to send her to this trip to Hawaii with the band. So just by telling this story, you guys, we raised, I guess I raised $2,000 in 48 hours just by telling her story. I was shocked. I thought it was going to take longer than that. But I had a friend of mine who commented on this post, and she said, she lives in Australia now. I went to high school with her. I haven't talked to her since high school. And she commented and said, hey, Kylie, to one fellow band geek to another, do your best and, always like march proud or something like that. And I just thought that was so cool because I hadn't heard from this person in so long, but just from telling Kylie's story, she donated $50 to the campaign, and she left that sweet message. So that just goes to show that if you tell the stories correctly, and you tell the stories that really resonate and stick with people, you can pretty much do anything. I raised $2,000. I was like, I should leave this up and try to raise more, but it was just an awesome example of how really telling your story can work. All right, so tips for telling your stories on social media. If you want to use graphics and pictures, Canva is your best friend. I think we all know what Canva is and how to use it. Make sure you have those nice graphics to go along with your story. You want to have a catchy first title or first sentence, and don't be afraid for your stories to be longer. These stories that I've told have been really long. They've been like 6-7 paragraphs long, and people take the time to read them. I recently told a story about my daughter's best friend, which happens to be a 2-foot plastic skeleton. And how it came along with our family pictures. And I told the story about that. People loved that. Again, one of my highest commented on, I was at my reserve job for the military this weekend, and I had 4 or 5 people comment to me about the skeleton post that I had done. And that post was like 2 weeks before I was actually working at the base and saw them. So they still remembered that post 2 weeks later. So I had a great picture of the skeleton, and then the story and everything like that, and a catchy first line. It was great. Use your own voice. You don't have to be a perfect writer. Don't try to be somebody that you're not. I type as I would talk, and then I kind of edit a little bit to make sure it's not too terrible. But people, that resonates with people too. If you try to change who you are or change your voice, it won't work as well. And then on Instagram, you have a word limit. So if for some reason your story reaches that word limit, you can just take the rest of that and pop it in the comments and say, okay, continued story, continued in comments, and then just continue it in the comments. I've done that with a couple of mine, and that worked out just fine. So these are some of the words of wisdom that I took away from Kendra. I had these written down in my notebook after the summit. The most important story of all is the story we tell ourselves. When times get tough, remember your story. And sorry, my little thing just popped up. Do what you love like nobody's watching. Show your team what you're doing, and don't just tell them to do it. That's really important. The more you say yes to new experiences, the more you have experiences and expand. And I just thought that these were really important because they help me refocus. Every time I get kind of lost or I'm not sure what to do, I come back and I remember kind of what she told me. If I'm stuck and I'm like, I don't know how to write this story, I'll come back and kind of reference some of the stuff that I learned, and it really helps me. So I wanted to give you guys a little takeaway activity if you want to do it. So I've talked a lot in 25 minutes, and I hope that some of it sticks with you guys, maybe some of those stories that I told. But I wanted you guys to have an activity to take away. So make a list of your firsts. Start thinking about the time when you X, or the first time you tried on your leggings, or the first time that you got that email that said you have an order, that one that comes through with ZYIA, and you get really excited about it. So how did you feel the first time that you got that order? How did you feel the first time a customer told you how much they loved the leggings? Maybe somebody told you a story about the leggings or the bras or the tanks and how it affected them or how much it impacted their life. Tell that story too. Or maybe a rep on your team, tell their story if they have a story about the company or the mission or how it's impacted or changed their life. Tell their story if they're okay with it. So I think this is a good example of just a great way to get started. Just make your list and then write your stories from there. And then these are just some of the resources. She's on Facebook and Instagram, and then I have read her book, Stories That Stick. I will be honest with you guys, I thought her book was good, but I didn't 100% love it. So it was a good book. There's a lot of like technical jargon in there, and there's a lot of like business background stuff. And so I honestly just skipped through and read her stories, and then I got to the points where I thought it really helped my business. So I skipped through pieces of it because I was like, oh, that's not really going to be what is going to help me. But there were certain aspects and pieces in the book that were really good to read into. And I think it's on sale right now. I saw like a notice come through. It's only $16. So I think it's definitely helpful, but just know there's pieces you might want to skim through and then come back and read later because they might not be as important for you right now if you're in kind of a time crunch. So, all right, Chrissy, that's all I had. I'm sorry, you guys, I talked really fast because I literally, my Zoom link is telling me that we're running out of time. So I wanted to get through everything.
That was so good. I am so appreciative. I mean, I have like a full page here of things. And thank you for doing a little takeaway because I love that. We always take all the stuff and listen and okay, now what do we do? And I think that's a great place to start because going off everything you just reviewed, just thinking about your first, there's so much emotion wrapped up. Even in my little short I wrote here, I was like, there's so many things I could go off of just that little tiny list of first. So much of your heart and your emotions are wrapped up into experiences like that when you experience something for the first time. So I'm excited to kind of dig into this a little bit deeper. And I loved how you said to not be afraid to share because for me that it does. Like sometimes it stops me. I get embarrassed or it's too much information. You are literally put yourself out there. But it kind of goes back like right before this, we were on the new rep call and I was sitting there saying, be uncomfortable, step outside your box, try this. And it goes so in line with that? Like, why is that so hard to share our stories? Like, so much of this business is being comfortable with being and doing uncomfortable things. And I think a lot can happen when we do that. When we step outside and do something uncomfortable, that's when magic happens.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to do this and not be scared of it, because I think it'll open up a lot of new doors and interaction for everyone.
Yeah, because people don't buy the stories, or I'm sorry, they don't buy the leggings because like the product's there. They can buy them from anybody. They're going to buy them from you because they connect with you, and telling those stories helps them connect with you.
Yep, 100%. And that does go so hand in hand and in line with our business, because like you're saying, just posting a stock photo, that isn't why people are buying it. You know, like so we always say this, but there's so much more to this business. It's so much more than activewear. And it's something like the community side. I mean, ZYIA really is. We are culture. We are a community. We are a movement. And it's like, that's the side. When you start to see that, it's not buying it because of your stock photo. They're buying it because of all that and supporting your dream and your small business, and because they've connected with you. So I love that.
Awesome.
Julie, do you have something to add?
Yeah. So have you experienced with Facebook Lives and sharing a story?
Somebody actually asked me that not that long ago, and no, I haven't. It is on my list to do, because that's even more scary. I cry every time I tell my stories because they're so emotional for me. So yes, I am going to do that. I'm just not brave enough at this point, but I think next week or the week after, I have a story that I want to tell that I think I maybe won't cry like when I tell it.
Will you do that in your private group, or you'll just do it in your private group?
I think I'll start in my private group, and then I will probably expand that to, if it's a story about ZYIA, I'll tell it in my private group. If it's a story about my life or my family and includes some ZYIA, but the main focus is my family or my life, I'll probably tell that in my public group, in my personal, like, friends and family page that's not ZYIA related. And then if I get really brave, I'll tell it on my business page.
Okay, great. It was great. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, good. Chrissy will send you guys the slides too, so you have something to reference.
Great.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you so much, Carrie. It was so good.
All right, you're welcome. All right, take care, you guys.
Bye, guys.